Okay, so this is a neighborhood tour. We're going to go to what they call the Lantern District, which is a wholly created neighborhood in Dana Point, or revitalized in sort of in a faux way, I think. But I'm setting the scene. Obviously, this is Dana Point, which is a point just about halfway in between LA and San Diego, and about 60 miles or 100 kilometers from each one. The point was made famous, which you can see the backside of it here, by Richard Henry Dana, who wrote 2 years before the mast, and at some point in about 1831 was throwing cowhides off of that cliff, the front side or the ocean side of that. Actually, the name of this geographic area was Bahia de San Juan, San Juan Bay, St. John's Bay, and that was after the San Juan Capistrano mission, which is about 4 miles inland from here. You will see one of many Spanish-style buildings, and they don't date to missions times, but they do date back to kind of the tail end of the Spanish revival in California, or Spanish romanticism of the whole Spanish era. You know, you have things like Helen Hunt Jackson's remote. You can see the kind of Victorian faux New England, or homage to New England effect right there. In this was built in the 1990s. Here's 1960s. So you see the Spanish tile, but you see that that's just a classic 1960s nice masonry work, kind of modern. This was built in the late 1960s, early 1970s. Delhaney State Beach, which we'll talk about, was over there. Is just past it. This was was actually called Killer Dana Surf Break. I doubt that today, with the Coastal Commission, which came into being in '74, I think, that this thing would be built. But it was built in like I said, I think it started in '68 and finished in '72, something like that. And so they're just. We're going to start what I consider the kind of the main part of the tour. You see another Spanish-style building across. That again, that's from the 1920s. Here's a new building. It's kind of interesting because it was built kind of in homage to what used to be there. What used to be there was one of the drive-in things. And you remember the City Heights tour stressed the drive-in nature of that El Cajon. Well, this was PCH, Highway 1, which for a long time, till the 5 was built, was the major north-south route along the California coast, and still is the major right along the coast route. So there was a lot of auto businesses, and this used to be actually an auto showroom. They tore it down, they kind of remodeled it, they didn't tear it down completely. There you go. Now here's an interesting contrast with the City Heights tour. The City Heights tour stressed that kids have to be, you know, looked after and have to have places to play and so on, and cared for when we're working parents. Well, a lot of people to afford to live in Dana Point have to have two-income families, so there are quite a few moms that stay home. I've seen them, but there's a lot of people that don't have that luxury, and so here we have the paid for by the child's parents themselves version of City Heights. Well, I guess that too was most of it was daycare paid by the parents, except for the park and the after-school programs and things that were featured in that one park by the police station in the City Heights video. That was mostly informal daycare provided in homes and right in the neighborhood. Well, here we have along the strip, the main strip of the street, a Montessori school. So very formal in terms of being a licensed business and part of a chain or a franchise or something, subscribing to a specific educational philosophy version of daycare right here. So people have the same needs, families have the same needs in many senses, they just meet them differently according to the access they have to funds. Right there is an old nursery, like a plant nursery, where they actually used to grow plants and now they just retail plants. An old coffee shop, a 1960s chalet type building. It's now a coffee shop competing with Starbucks, the local heroes compared to Starbucks. You see there an old kind of bungalow style buildings, now a surf shop that specializes in girls surf stuff. Another mark of the affluence of the area. Here you see kind of a modernist building. There's a couple art galleries in there, small kind of coastal flavored art galleries. Modernist things. Now this building was the actual office of the guy who sold real estate here, Woodruff Real Estate. Sidney Woodruff was a publicist that lived up in LA, had a great deal to do. I think he's the one that came up with the idea of the Hollywood sign. And then he moved down here. I guess you would consider Dana Point to be an exurb, one of the original exurbs. And the idea was to create kind of a resort area. This is again the 20s, the booming 20s. The idea was to create a resort area. So you see the Spanish style, and even this old Spanish windows or type with the complete with the balcony, the wrought iron. But his idea was to create like a little exurb. A place where the rich and famous could come down and hang out for the summer back then, you know, if they worked in hot LA, you know, San Fernando Valley or whatever, they could summer down here, enjoy the waves and the bay. Before the marina was built, there was still a small pier that they can boat off of. So he started this, and his vision kind of fell apart with the great crash, and so the original hotels failed, but he did, you know, name the place Dana Point. So that's when it started becoming known as Dana Point. Before that, this area, the whole area in general, was Bahia de San Juan de Capistrano, the San Juan Capistrano Bay. So I'm going to turn around. So we're looking back up the PCH now, and you can see that's kind of coming away from the point, coming downhill. This used to be 1960s buildings, the big modernist plate glass shops. It's had, like, you know, teak furniture and kind of tchotchkes and some high-end home decor and things like that. And this was torn down. Some nice 60s buildings that really kind of reflected an era of when they were first building the harbor. As was this here. You see the construction, comfortable, coastal, downtown living, shopping, and dining. Coming to the Lantern District. And Prado West, right? Prado West, pretty cool. Pretty snazzy sounding, right? So they're going to put up high density housing here. Now that sounds good, right? That sounds good. You know, high density, everybody loves density. Well, density has a cost. It took out, you know, it took out part of the charm, I thought, of the cities. These 60s buildings that really reflected a time when Dana Point was developing. And they'll just be more condos, right? Yeah. So. But there's also, it's not, you know, the developers are there and they want to make money, and obviously the land is worth a lot, but it also has to do with law, because cities are required, sushi place, my favorite sushi place, cities are required to build a certain amount of affordable housing. Well, the only way you can build affordable housing in Dana Point, which is 6.5 square miles, very small on the map, is to have high density housing. And this was kind of, well, this was just a vacant lot, and the city of Dana Point has just a dread fear of vacant lots, and so they're going to develop this. But that was a big political issue. I'll discuss that now. The original redevelopment was called the Town Center Initiative, and it was supposed to bring in housing, there's no question about it, and kind of mixed use things. And it was supposed to redo the street to where there's both you know, traffic both ways. But this was supposed to be pedestrian friendly. You can see it's not, I mean, it's kind of pedestrian friendly, it's not super pedestrian friendly, and the cars, you know, roll through the stop signs and stuff. But it was supposed to be all mixed use. So you see the condos, we have a small car down below. If you went up further that way, there would be a fitness, a high-end, well, not high-end, just kind of weird fitness place that has a lot of machines that I don't recognize, not a lot of weights, but a lot of, not only the normal cardio machines, but other machines, and it's all kind of gleamy metal in there. Here's a couple of little businesses. Anyways, back to the redevelopment. So they have this Town Center Initiative, and so somehow that warped into the Lantern District, right? They got that name because this used to be actually named Lantern Bay at one point. Between Bahia de San Juan and Dana Point, it was Lantern Bay. And so we have the Lantern District. A lot of the streets are named Blue Lantern, Copper Lantern, Golden Lantern, all that thing. So we have Lantern Bay interiors here. But the developers, of course, wanted to put in way more housing than was originally proposed. They wanted to get all variances to the height ordinance, which would knock out people above them's views. Just more traffic, more crowding. And so there was kind of like a mini pitchfork rebellion by the people of Dana Point, and they passed what's called Measure H, which kind of quashed a lot of that development energy, because the developers thought, well, we should get more bang from our buck. This is one of the vacant lots that the city of Dana Point just hates. This is actually has a use because it's a pumpkin patch in the fall and a Christmas tree lot in the winter. So it's not like it's of no use. And you put in high-end condos here, and you're just going to have more traffic, and you're not going to have a Christmas tree lot. Now, is that the best use for it? Probably not highest and best, as they say in the real estate business. But it's good that it's here. It has a function, but the developers and the city council do not like it at all. They're trying very hard to clean this town up, quote unquote, clean it up. We've arrived at what I would call the downtown, true downtown of Dana Point, which is now part of the town center and then the Lantern District. But you can see the modernist building. It's a little, could use a little sprucing up. But modernist 1960s building. Very square, clean lines. Kind of reminds me of, it already evokes a time in Dana Point's history when the marina was first being built. To the end of our so-called Lantern District. But you can see the smaller buildings, smaller scale, not so she. That pine will give you an idea of the sort of trees that used to be here before the palms took over. Yes, used to be like a, risque lingerie wear, kind of sex toys, variety store kind of here. Now it's a laser surgery place, which kind of fits the area. The building though is a great example of modernist architecture in Dana Point. Nice low slung. You got your simple hedge in the front. They've added a pygmy palm there, but very, you got your blue and white, kind of the Dodger blue facade. Stucco plate glass is very 1960s. More plate glass. Kind of reminds me. You notice it's really eclectic. And it has to do with there's not a lot of zoning laws around here, or weren't. Here's the kind of trees that used to be. They were spared because they're on the side streets. But I don't know what exactly that I should. What kind of trees they are, but they casted more shade. To me, they're more an interesting form. And they said Dana Point, palm trees are not native to this area. Any more than these are probably Australian trees, but palm trees really don't fit this area. They need a lot of water. So that's kind of what that whole PCH section kind of looked like, especially the south part, which was, you can see in the background, some sort of 1970s kind of brown architecture. Early mid 60s to late 60s kind of Asian or / Polynesian influenced architecture across the way there. So this has largely become kind of a place for these were all cottages. Again, these would have been built or plotted out by Woodruff way back in the 1920s, and then they got filled in. But gradually, again, this wouldn't have been tracked to them, so much like City Heights, there's a lot of variation in architecture. Looks like this would have been at one time a apartment with the central courtyard in the middle. You can see it's been kind of gussied up, and they put in some trees and landscaping. but that's what it would have been. There's again mixed use, much like in City Heights. So you have single family cottages, and then you have right next to that a high density apartment building. So that's a typical. There's some more apartment buildings and some more of these little kind of. Some of these really cottages are really nice inside, hardwood floors and things like that. And they you know, you're talking above $500,000 to live even in something like that. That kind of evokes this one right here. It kind of evokes suburbia, 1960s. It's just a whole right there. So that's that. So that's enough of our little side trip down the. You can see some add-ons to buildings as people have adapted. Yeah, pretty nice. We'll pass by is Hobie. It's a Hobie outlet. Hobie, the aquatics focused sports equipment maker. So they're out there. They're here too. Started here. I think they started up in LA, moved here very early in the corporate, and then we'll end up right here at the at an Irish bar. I think that's kind of cool. This is what they call a plaza. Now this has been like the center of Dana Point. Chamber of Commerce used to be down here. Now you can see the kind of peaked roofs and fake New England stuff. Nice kind of very you know, obviously we're very aquatic centers. Sea mammals, art is big here. Jellyfish. Ooh, we live by the beach. Yeah, you gotta use that, man. Gotta market that. And I guess I'm being a little bit flip, and I shouldn't be, because he's, you know, and it does make a theme to the town. This used to be Hennessy's, and now it's all of it used to be Hennessy's. Hennessy's used to go all the way across here, and I guess they've made one part of it into a wine bar. Which is, I guess you can take that as you take it. So you can say it's really getting late. And so this used to be, when the town was a little bit more youth-centered, quite the place to hang out. Because what's a town without an Irish bar, right? But it still is. You can see there's kids around, there's hipsters around. But I would say compared to when I was in that phase of my life, there's fewer. Maybe that's just because I'm older and don't notice it as much. And here's a Mercado, which kind of, Buena Vista, which kind of reflects kind of some of the demographic change. I mean, the town is still 90% white, I believe, but there's been a huge influx of low-income Hispanic workers here. They have the typical, we can send money to Mexico, Intermex, Western Union, just, you know, like you see everywhere in our supposedly diverse. Anyways, that'll be the end of my tour here. The Lantern District, trying to put it in a little historical context.